All right, good morning, grade nines. Okay, today we're going to talk about what we're going to be looking at this lesson. So yesterday's task, I can find it, was based around the idea of looking at starting a brand. So you had three different choices. You could look at a fast food restaurant or food truck, an upmarket coffee boutique, or a retro American style diner. And one of the things you're asked to do was to collect 10 images onto a PowerPoint slide, which would be used to help you with a summative assessment you'd be studying later this week. It's also a bit of an extension or a challenge, which could be utilized to get a slightly higher grade, or which you can utilize to get a slightly higher grade, which is asking the question, what interested you in this image? Now, I would love to be with you today to talk about the project that we're starting, but unfortunately I'm not. And rather than give you small tasks that are not really related to what we'll be doing, I think it's more important to just put the faith and trust in you that you're able to watch this, listen to the instructions, and get started with what you're doing. So this project will base around this idea. You have an imaginary wealthy investor, and they are putting you in charge of the creative process for starting a new location, a new food or cuisine location. They have one requirement, which is that you must take one of the briefs below. So you can pick one and only one, but you're going to pick the one that's most interesting to you. So the first one is a fast food takeaway location. So a food truck. So you could think, for example, the ones that are in Last Exit Dubai, and it can be any type of cuisine. So this one is if you want an easy one, if none of the other two appeal to you and you want something which is relatively simple, this is your one to pick. So let's read through what they say. Fast food takeaway for a food truck, any type of cuisine, but the client wants some recognizable packaging, which is going to be a challenge that comes up later, which is bright and vibrant to match the theme of the food truck. So if the packaging is bright and vibrant and it has to match the theme of the food truck, that means that the theme of the food truck needs to be bright and vibrant too. The second choice, an upmarket coffee boutique for more wealthy clients. This needs to be a luxurious brand which should make the clients feel elite. The packaging and all branding must feature gold as a color, but this should not be the main color. Okay, so that's for people who are up for slightly more of a challenge to develop, maybe people more interested in coffee who have a very distinct idea of what an upmarket coffee boutique could look like. And finally, a mid-level American diner style restaurant which could compete with equivalent places in Dubai. Okay, so some stuff that's like Five Guys, so stuff that's slightly more expensive, not McDonald's. You're thinking more at market than that. You're thinking like an experience where people go in, sit down and eat, and it's more enjoyable. This can match any American diner aesthetic from either the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s, but needs to stand out from the competition. So if you think of places like Five Guys, there is like an American Dial Steiner boutique place that is based upon probably 1960s style, if they're red and white branding that they have. So you're going to pick one of these. Okay, so you're going to read through in a second. You're going to have a go through them, and all the grading, which comes from the work we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, is going to be linked back to this brief. So if you're not interested in coffee, don't pick the coffee brief. Okay, if you are not particularly strong at visual arts and you need like projects which are going to be easier for you to adjust, you're going to go with the fast food takeaway. And maybe like the American diner style might appeal to someone who has strong feelings or motivations towards interior design, because this one's more themed around that. So when we develop towards a brief or an aesthetic or a design, we first need to start the research, which is why we had this set for us to do today, starting to research different kinds of images. Or if you haven't done that, that's where you're going to be starting today. You're going to be starting by gathering 10 images related to packaging, interior design, branding, uniforms for the staff, logos, or color schemes from existing companies. As we can see from here, the student who developed this brand or this brief was linked to an idea of starting like a Japanese style bubble tea cafe place. So they had very specific things that they wanted. They wanted there to be like a seafood cuisine logo, or like a happy octopus, which was shown in the final idea. The colors needed to be quite bright, quite vibrant, but they also wanted some awareness of their competition. Over the project, this is what they developed. So you had like a food truck aesthetic. They had different packaging for maybe hot drinks, cold drinks, some t-shirts or uniforms for the staff, some ideas like little postcards or stickers that you could get delivered as well, a different packaging and branding and stuff as they started to expand towards food. It's good to identify that this is not one of the briefs that you have. So this student's brief was entirely different and was developed over about the same period of time, but was towards a Japanese style cuisine for bubble tea. So don't look at this and think, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do for my upmarket coffee boutique, because it wouldn't match. What we're going to look at doing today, and the next summative task we're going to be working towards, is developing a mood board based on one of these briefs, one of the 3 briefs. So whichever one you pick, so for the rest of this video, I'm going to refer to the fact that maybe I've picked the upmarket coffee boutique. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be creating a mood board, which, as we can see here, is a combination of images, colors, logos, and ideas based around an idea or influence. The idea or influence is the brief that has been selected. And we can see different examples of mood boards here. Now, mood boards are used by professionals within the creative industry to work with a client. So remember, we're working for that wealthy investor. This would be the first step of the process, how we present our ideas for them, where we feel like we're going to take their project. There's a really helpful video link here, which I'm going to ask you guys to watch independently to yourself. I want you to pay really close attention to technique 1 and 2. This is a individual who works for a creative company doing this for live clients, and they know how to put the best examples of mood boards together. So you're going to particularly look at technique 1 and 2, but not 3. So when she starts talking about technique 3, you can skip that one. And this is going to be the criteria that we're looking at with this. Now, the way that we will work through this piece is, because obviously you're at a slight disadvantage with myself not being in, is that the first submission of it that we'll look at building will be formative. And then you get some feedback based upon there to improve it. So if we look at this task, it's a criteria B task to create a mood board, including food types, color palette, logo design, mascot, style of food packaging, which matches the client's brief. Okay, and we have our success criteria down here. We've got our good examples. If we go to the top, excellent exploration of ideas to a point of realization. Layout is excellent and supports the design. Additional areas such as clothing styles for uniform or fonts may be included here. Think back to typography. You might choose some good examples of type or text that you include in there. We can even see that on some of these examples here. 46, quality strong, shows the client's brief. Images are selective, which means there might not be as many of them, but they do showcase a range of ideas. So maybe there's like 1 image for a logo, 1 for packaging, 1 for uniforms, whereas a 6 to an 8 might have multiple images for each of those. And they showcase these in a professional manner. So maybe you look at these examples and think, oh, I want to build kind of this like scrapbook aesthetic. So I'm going to work digitally, then I'm going to print it out and I'm going to put it in my sketchbook. And as we flick down there, that's what we can see. It's really clear to note you could have an absolutely astonishing mood board that you submit when we finish this work. But if it does not match one of the client's briefs, that's going to be a 0. You are working within this project under the assumption that you are now graphic designers. You have to meet the client's brief. If you were a graphic designer who had a client's brief, produced a mood board that you thought was interesting, but was not matching anything that they wanted, then the 0 here represents the fact that you would get fired, because they'd be like, okay, you know, your work might be great, but it's not what I'm after, so we're going to part ways here. And that's what we're looking for. The other thing to go through, and this is going to be relevant for later in the week, is as you start to develop the brief, we're going to be doing more work linked to this, okay? Particularly over the weekend, I'm going to be maybe suggesting that you start looking at whichever brief you're doing and getting some pictures related to that. This is going to be something I put off for another lesson, so you guys have a good opportunity to do some work on this. But again, I'm just going to reinforce that point. Do not pick a brief that you are not interested in, because if there's a brief and you're like, oh, this isn't a very good idea, then you're not going to enjoy the project and it's going to be a really difficult 4 to 6 weeks for you. Okay, I'm going to wrap things up there. I will be available on chat if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, the PowerPoint and everything is at your disposal, and I look forward to getting back in and seeing what you have put together. Take care. I'll see you soon.